Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are crime dramas. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about The Old Man, Season 2, Episode 7. A great episode. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So first and foremost, let's start off with the conversation between Dan/Johnny and Pavlovich. And I really am a fan of the show structuring of how they do, like, the people that are inside people's heads, like, they're out of focus, and just, like, how that's all handled, where it's, like, it makes perfect sense that this would be the time that, I think it's so poetic, too, considering, like, Season 1 was him seeing Balor, Abby, but now it's, like, yeah, he's seeing, he saw, like, young, Hamzad in, like, Episode 1, and now he's seeing Emily. And I love that whole situation of her being like, there was that interesting line that's kind of a callback to the Emily thing of, like, killing Omar, where it's like, she's like, okay, like, the fact is, the moment you get a chance, you're gonna kill him. And she's like, and I'm gonna know how much you love me, because that's why she killed Hamzat. It's like, it's interesting too, because it was specifically Dan who had that perspective on why she killed Omar, and she did it, like, to show her love to Hamzat. So of course his projection and perception and this, like, subconscious manifestation of Emily would say the same thing, because it is the thing of, it's saying all the things he believes she would say, but it's like, how much of that is, like, it's a thing of, you don't know who your daughter became. Yes, you hold on to who you think of when you think of Emily, but she changed a lot upon meeting Hamzat. So it's like, I don't think she would have said any of the stuff that she said, but it's its own guilt and own regrets that have kind of manifested. So it's like, that's not Emily talking, that's your consciousness talking in that capacity. But yeah, Pavlovich is like, okay, why did you turn yourself in? Because I need the Dixons dead, because the cartel thinks I basically am giving a stake of my company to some American spy, and that could look a little bad considering what I'm doing. So I need to remove all threats. That includes you and your wife, or at least a person pretending to be your wife, because I know Balor is dead. So it's interesting because, once again, you have Emily talking at the same time, being like, oh yeah, I'd never really liked those names. They sounded too much like someone else's names. And it's like, right, the moment you get an opportunity, and this is exactly what Zoe said last episode, that the moment you get a chance, who's to say you won't be able to quell your anger and you'll just kill him the moment you have a chance? This is the man who murdered your daughter. So, of course, you're going to feel a certain way, and you're not going to be able to hold back that anger. But he tries to calmly talk to Pavlovich and kind of tells him, like, the reason why you need to keep me alive. He's like, because I have Zoe back in the States. No, she's not even in the States, because they're in London. He's like, I have her ready to kind of pull the trigger on this plan. It's like, basically, it's like, get in contact with, like, the CIA and tell them who killed Morgan Boat. And the moment you do that, you are fucked, Pavlovich, because everyone who's connected to Boat will know your name, and you will not be able to hide. Like, you have dissonance from it now because no one knows your name, but Morgan's too much of a big, heavy hitter in this world. Like, there's so much that moved and shaped because of Boat. So, like, you removing him, being responsible for that, a lot of people are going to come out of the woodwork. As that guy Pete says to Zoe, like, there's a lot of monsters that are going to come out because you said the words, I know who killed Morgan Boat. So, we'll get to that in a second, but that ends up being the play that Dan has. And he's like, right, I can give them another name. And he's like, my name. We could spin the story to be like, yo, Boat, I was the protege that Boat made, who came to take care of him, saying, like, right, that basically dragging in the whole Emily of it all, because that's when now Pavlovich is learning, wait, Emily wasn't your daughter. This Angela Adams wasn't your daughter. She was Hamzat's daughter. That's why she was there, learning who she really was. Now he's really like, oh, shit, that's what this was all about. Once again, so many people getting filled in after the fact, because they just thought, like, right, because they never knew the significance of Angela. That was the biggest question. That was the thing. Omar just was like, who are you and why are you so important? Now it makes sense of, oh, she wasn't just some random FBI agent. She's not even just your daughter, because the whole point was to kidnap her, to because Dan was supposed to be kidnapped, but it ended up being Angela because that was like what Hamzad wanted. So, but now it's filling in on like, oh, so the person that I killed there, was your daughter, but was also Hamzad's daughter. And it's like, wait, why are you telling me all this? And even Emily inside of his head is like, what are you doing? She's calling him a coward. It's like, right, you said you'd do anything for me, and you're not willing to die for me. You want to live? Like, is this more important to you than me? But for him, it's like, I made a promise to come back alive, and I think for him, he's broken enough promises in this world that he doesn't want to do more, and he wants to kind of live, because Emily had even said it herself, not last episode, but episode 5 of, hey, I don't want you to basically drown in this guilt. Kind of live your life. Don't let this, what's happening now, color how you live the rest of your life. Don't drown in the regrets. Like, this is going to happen. I need you to be prepared for it. So she would want him to live his life, and maybe on some level he understands that, because he's knowing, like, if I stay here and die, if I kill Pavlovich, his men will kill me, and I'll get my revenge, but I'll break the promise I made to Zoe. Considering I dragged Zoe in all of this, I am responsible. Plus, I care about her. He even says, like, she's my wife, and it's like, don't you said she's not someone that matters to me? He's like, yes, but she matters to me. So it's like, right, I will make it so that Zoe gives the CIA, everyone, my name as Morgan Boat's killer. So you give me money, and me and Zoe disappear. The only other thing I want my daughter's body. I want to be able to properly say goodbye, Because he's like, because at first he's like, oh, this is all a trick or what. He's like, no, like, the fact of the matter is, he's like, would you really let me go? I'm the man that murdered your daughter. Like, I don't see you letting it go. He's like, letting it go, like, not angry. He's like, I am furious. Like, the fact is, I could come up with a lie right now, any easy lie, just to get you close enough so I could snap your neck. But I'm not going to, because I made a promise, and I have to keep that promise. And like I said, there's layers and elements to that. It's both to Emily and to Zoe, and kind of to himself. I think he even did say, like, his wife, like, as in, like, Belor, he made, like, a promise to kind of, like, I guess, do right by her, and just, like, letting his anger get the best of him simply for revenge will not do right by Emily. It's like, what I can do is take her and bury her where she belongs. And even Emily inside of his head is, well, where is it that it belongs? It's like, well, if you're going to bury her, it would have to be in that village, because that's where the rest of her family is. But would you bury her where her mom? It's probably where he's thinking. So it's complicated. It makes you wonder, where would Emily want to be buried? And at the same time, this is all going down, we're getting flashbacks of Zoe's past, of, like, her getting married, her wedding day, which her father-in-law, I'm like, what do I know that actor from? I should have looked into it, but I was like, I know him for some, I was like, he was a douche, like, his character was like I can't remember, I remember him being like a bad guy in something that, or I don't know, his face looks so familiar, I'm like, I know you from something, I just can't place what. But anyway, like I said, we got the flashback with Zoe, just not quite sure she wants to get married. And I love that conversation with her father-in-law. He's like, do you think that you don't love him enough? And she's like, that's such a not a fair question. He was like, yeah, but he's basically like, it doesn't exist. There's not like this light switch of like, oh my God, you're so in love. He's like, that's what they sell on greeting cards and stuff like that. It's nothing of substance, But the thing is, if you sit around waiting for that person, that switch to get flipped, you're going to be waiting around a long time, and you're just going to be miserable and alone, waiting for that perfect moment that may actually never come. So it is a thing of can you find a way to kind of just be happy and content? It's almost like an arranged marriage type of situation of maybe you don't love that person, but maybe you can grow to love them, or at least some semblance of love. I think it's kind of what you can get from that conversation. So. And obviously it informs a lot of what Zoe's going through right now, discovering herself, because she even talks about like she wanted immunity. And obviously that was just to buy time, but there's probably still some elements of truth of like, right, I want immunity. I want to separate the things what I've done and who I've become versus who I was before. Once again, that was just to buy time, but I think there is still some like element of truth. That's what makes the best lies, is there are hints of truth in it. But it's all kind of a moot point, because out of nowhere, while they were like, Dan was giving her the sign off of like, yo, you need to do this. Like, you know what this means. Pavlovich changed his mind. And I was like, what made you change your mind at that moment? So he ends up being like, nah, leave Dan to die. And he leaves a guy behind to kill Dan. It turns out he's one of Dan's victims from way back in the day. Probably one of the guys he killed in season 1 in the flashbacks. I can assume it's that. So it is that, and this series is kind of a repeated theme and element to this series is like the creation of monsters that you never meant to be monsters, but you never know. Once again, you never know how your action is going to play out. But yeah, this guy is breaking all the antidotes and he wants Dan to suffer. And he's like, oh, I'm going to cut you from like belly to throat like you did my dad. And Dan got, cut his hands free on some broken glass, sliced the guy's leg, probably definitely cutting some arteries, and then like kind of held his hand with like his tie and just held him in position as he bled out in seconds, and then he died that way. So, but the problem is there's no more antidote. So it's like, cool. What happens now? How do you remedy that situation? At the same time, Zoe, once again, Pavlovich gave the go-ahead to kill Zoe, even though it's like, yeah, there's going to be some concerns for doing, but he's like, the fact is I got to meet with the cartel right now. Who cares about essentially the dominoes of what's going to happen, like the collateral damage that's going to happen. He's like, it won't matter because what I'm doing right now is too important. So today, any collateral damage doesn't matter. I'll deal with any repercussions for that later. But it's like, yeah, you kill someone from the CIA. I even love Pete's thing of like, it's like, oh, I'm the guy. He's like, what guy is that specific? He's like, the guy that shows up when you whispered, and the fact is, who killed Morgan Boa. I'm that guy, And once again, he had promised to, he's trying to scare her in, do you know what you're getting into? Once again, all moot points because he gets got, the poor lady that's the police officer there gets got. I was like, is there no one else in that station? I mean, it must be a very, very small police station or something, but because it seemed like she was the only cop on duty. Well, yeah, because she was like, yeah, we're going to call the constable. So I guess like maybe everyone else was out of the station at the time, maybe. But yeah, Zoe ended up killing a guy, which I'm like, oh, lucky her. And it was only one guy. I love that Julian shows up literally after everything's already dealt with. He's like, oh, seems like you're good. Okay, so Harold informed you about how this is all going to go. All right, come on. So where they're going to go, it's going to be interesting to see. Then we also had the situation with Harold tracking down Marion and talking to her, which was it Janet McTeer is the actress's name. The thing I best know her for is, I think there was something else I know her from. There was a short-lived show on Netflix, I believe she's in, called Chaos with Jeff Goldblum. But before that, on Netflix, it's Ozark. But I swear there was something else I know her from too, and I just can't remember what it was. I think I remember like being like, oh yeah, it's is it Helen? The lawyer from Ozark. I remember distinctly thinking that from something else, and I can't remember what it was. I watched it. God, it's gonna bother the crap out of me. I remember her in something, and I just couldn't remember what. But I remember thinking, "Oh, that's Helen from Ozark." Whatever the case may be, I think I didn't talk about it last episode, but I meant to bring it up this episode too. So there's that. But yeah, they have a conversation because she's like, yeah, I figured you were following me, Harold. He's like, I'm going to have a conversation with you right now. And he's like, I need to know, what is your relationship with Pavlovich? And she's like, dude, I worked with him. We don't really have any relationship now. She's like, the fact of the matter is, she's like, I know why you're doing this. You're doing this for Morgan. If anything, I thought he was more so doing this for Emily more than Morgan, but maybe it's a combination of two. It's kind of for Morgan, even though how complicated their relationship was. But she tries to say that, like, I respected Morgan, even though, like, I didn't appreciate his worldviews. I thought he was his morals were kind of twisted. But at the end of the day, like, if I was going to kill him, I would tell you. I'd have the decency to tell you. And I'm telling you, I had nothing to do with it. That was all Pavlovich. Like, he's the one that killed Morgan without my say-so or my input. But I love that Harold's like, years ago, I would have, like let you fool me with all that. Then I would have played a little coy, like, oh my God, I'm done. He's like, but nah, remove past that. I don't have time for this bullshit. Tell me what you know and what this is all about. So she's the one that brought Pavlovich in to the cartel because she's like, with his muscle and infrastructure, he would be a nice element to join this cartel. And it's also like, you know, because she wanted to convince Hamzad to give the deposits over to like Beijing, and it's like, why would he do that? He wouldn't. That's what Hamzad kept being reluctant about, because he wanted it to be American money and interest connected to the deposit. And it's like, why? It's like, well, because it all comes, because Helen, I'm calling her by her Ozark character name, sorry. Marion couldn't figure out why until this season when Harold called in that favor. And it's like, Angela Adams, and so she figured it out in that moment. That's what this is all about. He was making this deal with the Americans, giving all this American interest to them for the deposit, because he wanted to use that as leverage to be able to track down Angela, or Emily. Oh, Palmwana, so, you know, going through all her names, sorry. But yeah, she was basically turning her back on her country, which even he's like, the fact of the matter is, your fellow countrymen whose names you basically burnt for all of this, like, what was it all for? And she's like, one of the things she said, what did I tell you I wanted? He was like, dinner? But he's like, I knew that was bullshit. She's like, no, I was being sincere because I wanted someone like, you know, I've come to realize Pavlovich is not the right person to be a part of this. So she was like, I need someone else. And I was like, wait, are you trying to convince Harold to take over? But no, it's not Harold. She wanted Harold to be in good with Harold so that he could have a sit down with her and Emily, because Emily's from that area and someone who has an American with ties to that region, who also knows so many different languages. She's been trained by the best of the best, Harold, that she would be the perfect partner in all of this. And she saw her to be like that missing piece to the puzzle that could, and Harold's like, wait, he's like, holy crap, I've never thought I'd be so happy to be divorced from you and just accept in this moment. Holy crap, I would have never let Emily get 1,000 miles within you, like, knowing this. It's like, that woman was like a daughter to me. I would never let her near you. Like, are you crazy? And she's looking at him like he's crazy for not being like, right. It's kind of like it's kind of a no big deal type of thing. But it's like, no. I wonder, did she actually, like, what would make her think Harold would co-sign that? I don't know if she had something tucked in a back pocket like a trump card that would allow her to do that. But I don't see any shape or way Harold would let that happen. But also, if Dan got any whisper that, like, that would have been put a massive kibosh in that. Also, I don't see Emily doing that. But I guess maybe the argument could be like, well, maybe Emily would do it just for like 4 moves ahead type of play, or because she thought it would be for the betterment of the region. I don't know. But yeah, we have Pavlovich calling Marion, and he's kind of acting a little concerned. And even then, Marion's like, he called me. We actually, yes, I set him up at the position in the cartel and stuff like that, but we have not been on close terms for a while. And for him to call me up out of nowhere, it's like, he must be terrified. But the question is, what is he so terrified of that he'd make that phone call? And he's up there talking to the cartel because apparently the deposit is not as safely tucked in Pavlovich's hands, and he's trying to appease everyone, being like, no, it's fine. Ignore the rumors saying, like, no, my people are highly skilled. And then we see, like, you know, in the region, like, the dust is settling. I'm like, is it going to be Emily? And sure as hell is. And you're like, so who the hell is backing her? Because I'm like, are you acting like this now? Because, one, Dan was already scary enough because you knew that he was going to come after you, and you know he was angry about Emily. Are you doing this now because, are you scared now because Emily, if she was able to overpower you, your people there, and now she has control of the deposit, so that puts a lot of backing her favor. It might also be a thing of, he knows that if her rise to power or anything like that could make the cartel decide they want her and not him, and that could put her in a more favorable position to wipe him and his people off the map. That might be the thought she has, because she's like, right, Dan was all about revenge because he thought Emily was dead. I played my own heart and everything. So maybe she's going to come out and act revenge. I saw that fire and that anger in Dan. I could only assume like a combination of Dan and in combination with, you know, Balor and Faraz Hamzad is going to make her quite the formidable foe. Who came to her rescue? Who does she have as backing that is so terrifying that she's able to lead? I mean, once again, this right here is leading into the reasons why Marion is so interested in her. So it definitely feels like Emily is filling in her father's role. I mean, that's also why she stayed behind. So, you know, as this season is her self-discovery of figuring out who she is. And I think where this episode ends and where the season finale takes us is really going to define who she is going forward. Because once again, she's not Angela. She's not Emily. She's Pawana, but is there still some element of Emily there? We'll have to wait to see, like I said, where the season finale takes us with all of this. Because you still, as I said, the Dan of it all. Like, how do you get around that situation? Like, where you even begin to get another cure or antidote for that? The Zoe and Julian of it all. Now that Marion and Harold had this conversation, where do they go in aftermath of all this? What is Pavlovich going to do? Considering like this went super sideways. So we'll have to wait to see. But that's really all I wanted to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.